This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always, joined as always by Calum McClurkin. Calum, another busy week at Cheltenham. How's things been?
Hi there, yeah. It's been all go, busy. Hard to imagine this is the 7th episode already, so on the full run into Christmas.
It's a busy series, but we've got one episode left before we go to Cheltenham. Before we go to Christmas. So let's get started. Let's look at the recap of the last week's racing. We'll start off on Friday at Cheltenham. Mr. Fisher won the rescheduled Peterborough Chase. Battled back to win pretty well. It was a pretty good race. A few pretty good horses turned up. Mr. Fisher bounced back from his disappointment in the Paddy Power Gold Cup. He's now into 16-1 for the Ryanair. What do you think? Do you think he's a player on the Ryanair, Calum, or are we reading too much into this?
I think he is now. To me, he's back on track. He was racing off 155. I know it's a graded race anyway, but he was given £7 rise for that, which puts him up to 162, which would definitely in the official handicapper's mind puts him into the equation. The better ground just made a world of difference to him. It wasn't the good ground he was looking for. There was still some cut in it, so it wasn't exactly ideal. But last season's Marsh looks to be a good race. He ran quite well in it. He was just a bit too far back to challenge. That's in the new course at Cheltenham, and so's the Ryanair. So it looks to be a suitable target for him, and he's an each-way player for sure now.
Definitely. We'll move on to Saturday at Cheltenham. A horse called Adagio won a Juvenile Hurdle well. He's now 20-1 for the Triumph. I like this horse, Calum. The only thing I would say is he going to beat the likes of Zani here, Calixios, and a horse I quite like, Nazalam? Is he good enough to be in that kind of bracket?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The race kind of fell apart a little bit, wasn't it? He went off 49 on, so he did what most people would expect him to do and win quite easily on his own accord. I think he's probably more of a Fred Winter horse. Google's handicap. If he can keep his mark kind of just below maybe the 140s or something like that, he could probably see a strong pace and he'd be seeing a good effect there. But he does a very good Cheltenham form now, so you know he's capable on the track. I think the Triumph will be too hot. I think there's too many.
Yeah, it's looking a good race already. Yeah,
classy juveniles kicking about, and there's probably more to come that we haven't seen yet from that division. So I think he's one to bear in mind for the Fred Winter at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to the Novices Chase. Physio Raffles beat Chantry House. I don't know what to make of this. I couldn't touch any of them for Cheltenham right now, to be honest. Chantry House was disappointing, but obviously looking at it maybe needs a step up in trap. But Physio Raffles is sitting about 16-1 for the Marsh. I couldn't have him.
No, he's not for me. He looked beaten too as well. Lieutenant Rocco, I think, was a bit.
I would take more out of him than I would the other two.
He didn't go very fast though. Lieutenant Rocco, he kind of shaped a bit like a stair or something like that. Physio Raffles, he was given weight all round, so on ground it was probably far softer than ideal. I think according to the Henderson team. There's far more that appeal to me for Ryanair purposes than him at the moment, I would think. Chantry House was a real head scratcher. He never really travelled at all. Thought he was very disappointing. Bumped. He might need further, I don't know, but it wasn't a very good run. There's a lot of question marks of that.
But it was confusing because he was third in last year's Supreme and did look as if he was quick enough for 2 miles and did probably look as if he could handle this trip pretty well. It's weird. I don't know where do you give him a step up in trip, or it's hard to question at this point.
I think it might be worth trying. Maybe stepping up to. He did have the entry in Friday's 3 mile contest.
Yeah,
he went the half route. Connections blamed the ground, but it was a really heavy ground Supreme that he was third in, so I'm not sure that that's a real valid excuse that was given. I wouldn't entirely write him off because of just one bad run, but he's certainly a lot of question marks for me now.
Yeah, Definitely. We'll move on to the Caspian Caviar Gold Cup, where we saw Chatham Street Lad won very well. Easy, very easy. It was very, very good. He's still a novice, which we still we didn't think, but he's 14-1 for the Mars, 60-1 for the RSA. Like, do you think he's good enough to be a graded operator? Do you think this was a very, very good performance?
He's probably worth trying at this company now. The Irish handicapper reacted by bumping him up a whole stone.
Yeah.
A good yardstick in Midnight Shadow. He's got some very good Cheltenham form around the mark of 148. So now that he's 154, 155, probably a mid 150s horse, he could feasibly cope off top weight of a handicap. But I think utilising that novice status, you've got to try and chance your arm at these wee graded races now, I think.
It was a very good story as well. That I would like to see Chatham Street Lad again. I think he's certainly a good bit each way value at the Marshall, the RSA. It's difficult to say where he'd go. I would say probably RSA, but that'll be an interesting one to follow. We'll move on to the International Hurdle, where I know we've got a lot of things to cover here. But we'll start off with the winner song for someone. Tom Simmons has been really, really impressive the past few weeks. Some very good horses in form.
Yeah, he's operating at 31% strike level. Yeah. So this song for someone just continues to improve and surprise people.
Do you think he's got a chance in the Champion Hurdle?
I think he does have an outside chance. It'll need to rain very hard, I would imagine. Need to bog down maybe some of the classier speedsters that might travel all over him.
Yeah.
He wants to fall from the front. The way the race ran, I don't think he'd be suited by the Mission of Hurdles because he's probably a better jumper.
Yeah. So, what do you think about that? Like, I just want to touch on that quickly with you. But what do you think of do you think? Well, obviously there's been a lot of debate about it, but are we getting a true feel for the kind of form with so many hurdles and fences being omitted for certain races?
Possibly not. It'll certainly suit horses and certainly not suit others. I think the International Hurdle kind of turned into a mess of a race because of it. Because it was quite tight the way they had to kind of go round these fences.
Yeah.
There's about 6 or 7 of them in a line, and normally you're approaching the hurdle and they'll all jump at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
They all had to kind of chicane round it. It was a bit awkward, and it hampered some others and it favoured some others. I mean, it tends to happen at this time of year, with the low sun. There's not a lot I don't think people can do about it, unfortunately.
Definitely. There's a few decent horses behind them as well, the likes of Silver Streak with So Royal, Ballyandy. The one horse I want to touch on though was Goshen. Now, we've both been very adamant that Goshen is a freak of some kind, but now we're kind of beginning to think, is this horse anything near what we thought he was? Obviously, he's got a regular heartbeat that will be touched on later on. But what do you think of that? Just what do you think of Goshen? What was going on there? Do you think?
He was the first one beaten, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So in a way, I think Connections will be glad that they found something with him, because it was a performance that would really, really head scratchy. He tried to restrain him a little bit, and I think that was a bad idea. He should have just allowed him to bowl out like he normally does.
Yeah.
Throw him off to potential. It was disappointing. I mean, I've touched on it before. The step up from juvenile from age 4 to 5. Some horses can disappear for a year.
Yeah.
Like we saw he did. Some of them don't handle it. Some of them don't train on, and some just need more time. Hopefully, the case with Goshen is that he just needs more time. I'm not keen to see him being rushed back immediately.
No, I wouldn't either.
Like Cheltenham in March or spring. I think you've just got to mind the horse, take it slowly, and this year just make it a kind of not a total write-off, but I think more transitional for Open Company. He was too talented in the Triumph. It was a performance that most people I don't think will forget soon. So I'm hoping that he'll come back, but I was never his biggest fan from the off, to be honest. I kind of unfortunately anticipated this season to be a bit difficult for him, but
yeah,
he would add a great dimension to the 2 mile division for me if he could be able to turn him, because it's a smaller yard, it's a smaller ownership, and I think that's good for racing when they can compete at the top level. So hopefully they can get him back.
Definitely. It was strange to see, but it was one of those things I wasn't overly surprised at the end up, because it was one of, like, this horse is, I think this horse is something unlike we've seen in a long, long time. I think he's just going to play with punters' minds like that. But we hope he comes back. We hope he's certain. I would like to see, if he's going champion hurdle, I think he's sitting about 20s. I wouldn't have him at maybe 66s right now for the champion hurdle. But we hope to see him again before Cheltenham if he goes there, and we can hopefully see the real Goshen. But we'll touch on lastly at Doncaster. There was a juvenile hurdle and we saw Monmorrow win very easy, 16-1 for the Triumph Hurdle. I think this horse could be pretty good, pal.
He could be. Gordon Elliott horse in third didn't really fire at all,
No.
Which might grab the form slightly. He made a big mistake 2 out. He kind of gave the front running leader a chance to come back at him, but then he cleared the way anyway. He was travelling quite well. He was very green up front as well, so they'll probably improve and learn from the experience. It was a bit of an underwhelming race. When there's 28 grand for the winner and just 4 or 5 runners,
Yeah.
I thought I'd expect a little bit more competition for a juvenile trial of that nature. But he won it well, as he was entitled to do, and he's probably the best British prospect, I think, for the Triumph Hurdle at the moment.
Definitely. See, just to touch on the Triumph Hurdle, we'll preview the Triumph Hurdle later on in the series, but Zani here, I looked at the betting this morning, Zani here sitting 7-2 and the nearest challengers 10-1 Calexios, and then we've got the likes of Monmorrow, Adagio, Nazalam, they're all kind of sitting 14s. Do you think there's that big a gulf between Zani here and the rest of the field right now?
I think people on the clock and the time buffs, I think, are Team Zani here, and I think that's probably why it's keeping his down. But I see your point, because it's probably not the quality of them in behind, it's the quantity of them.
Yeah.
It's not potential just 1 or 2 that can challenge this, it's potentially 4 or 5.
It does look, it looks a great race already. I know we've still a long way to go for this race, but it's, to me, there shouldn't be that big a difference between the favourite. Ozani here was very, very impressive, don't get me wrong, but I think there's 4 or 5 horses there that I think are serious contenders already.
There's plenty of options in it. Some might go Fred Winter in the end, though. And
yeah, probably, yeah.
There's probably others that we haven't even set eyes upon yet. So it's shaping up to be an interesting market, more so than usual at this time of year, I think.
Mm-hmm. We'll move on to Monday in Naas. We saw Take T won a mare's bumper. She was very, very impressive. I really like her a lot. She's 12-1 for the champion bumper. We don't know exactly if she's going to go here or not, but if she does, she would certainly be a player.
Yeah, Willie Mullins is very selective with his mares over bumpers, but he won it with Relegate recently. It's definitely a good backup to have if he wants to go there fully armed and have a big go at it. I think he'd probably be one that you'd want to see in the team if they head there. She was impressive enough.
Yeah, she was good, yeah.
It was a 66-1 shot in the second. That might dampen the form enthusiasts a little bit, but she travelled really well. When she hit the front, she was a bit lonely. She still kind of powered away easily enough to do the different league to them, and it's what you like to see from a bumper favourite before they go on to bigger and better things, you'd imagine.
Definitely. Wednesday in Newbury, we saw Leco's article for Nicky Henderson and Joe Donnelly. Was 40-1 before the meeting, because I backed him, sorry. Now 16-1 for the Supreme. Very, very impressive. Again, I think when you see a horse like that with the same colours of the winners last year, I think you do get quite excited, but this horse was very, very good.
He was, yeah. For Nicky Henderson team, he was a bit immature at the start and at the end. You know, he was kind of flashing his tail towards the end, but I think that shows a lot of sign that there's a lot more to come as well from him.
Yeah.
He needs cutting the ground, I believe. I think Nicky Henderson has had his issues with him. He's had the leg problem. So niggly things that come over for France. That's probably why he's just running now as a 6-year-old. He's maybe a bit behind the curve, but connections will be mindful of that. They'll be minding him along, and where he goes next will be very interesting to see if they are going to really press ahead with him. I think he'll be lightly raced, so he would probably only run about once or twice this season, maybe because of his injury history. But it was a very, very taking start to his hurling career.
Definitely. Finally, last horse to mention, Thursday at Down Royal, a horse we both like a lot. Billaway won a Hunter's Chase, now into 5-1 favourites for the Fox Hunter. This horse is very, very good. Last year, I think he was a bit unlucky in the race, the Fox Hunter, but this year, I think the experience will help him. I think he's a very, very good chance in that race.
Yeah, he's an 8-year-old now. I just think he was a bit inexperienced last year. He was a bit careful at his fences, but he looked a lot sharper yesterday. He's very good, I think. I think he's smart. I think he's potentially just better than a run-of-the-mill Hunter's Chaser as well. He's with the Mullins team. I think he ticks a lot of boxes for this already, and he beat a couple of very decent horses in along with Million and Stand Up and Fight.
Yeah,
They'll beat quite comfortably. I think he's very smart. He's definitely the right favourite for the Fox Hunters right now.
Definitely. And that was our look at the recap for the week. We'll move on to this week's race preview, where we'll take a look at the Sporting Life Arkle Novices Chase. One of my favourite races of the week. It's the race after the Supreme. So if you're after a winner, then this is the race you're looking for after the Supreme. What's your kind of favourite winner of this race, Callum? I personally love Duvan. I saw him live and in living colour when I was there when Duvan won, and I was blown away that day with him. So what's your kind of favourite winner for the Arkle?
Yeah, it was Duvan for me as well.
Yeah.
He was it. Yeah.
Definitely. We'll take a look at this year's betting. We'll start off with Shishkin leading the market at 6-5, All Mankind 8-1, Felix Deji 14-1, Hitman 16-1, Captainguinness, Andy Dufresne and Unaccepted 16 as well, and it's 18-1 bar. We'll start off where we rightfully should start off with the Supreme winner, Shishkin. Are you a Shishkin man? Do you think this horse is the real deal?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Yeah, he was excellent, wasn't he? At his chasing debut, hammered Mick Passer by 23 lengths. He did kind of everything right that you want to see from a chasing debutant, and he transferred his form from the Supreme hurdles to fences as quick as a flash. Kempton next at Christmas for him.
Yeah.
He'll reveal a little bit more. But yes, he ticks a lot of boxes. He's the right favourite for now. That's for sure.
Do you think there's a lot of things as well with how impressive he was last year in the Supreme, considering how hampered he was during the race? Do you think we're now seeing just how good this horse can be?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of untapped potential, isn't there? I mean, there's already comparisons to Altior, to Sprinter Sacre. I mean, Nicky Henderson does have a knack of timing these 2-mile chasers along perfectly to roll onto each other.
Definitely.
And this looks to be the next one off the conveyor belt to me.
Does that. 8-1 All Mankind second favourite, the winner of the Henry VIII Novices Chase just last week. My thinking with All Mankind is that obviously he's going to set the pace. We know for a fact this horse is a front runner, and quite a nutty front runner at that. But he's certainly took the fences pretty well. But I just think he's going to open it up. He's going to give Shishkin a lead to chase, and Shishkin's just going to power by him. But again, I wouldn't put anybody off All Mankind. But what do you think of him?
He won the Henry VIII really well. He's got career best, and given he had quite a few runs beforehand, it does show that he's still improving. He's got a mark of 154. He's got £5 to find with Shishkin.
Yeah,
you can add that on again, double it, because he's going to lose his allowance next year, which is a bit of a problem. The trainer's not the biggest Cheltenham Festival fan either, and it's not inconceivable to think that he might dodge this and maybe focus on Aintree or something like that. He's at the track. He's not quite for me, but yeah, if he does turn up from the pace perspective, as you've mentioned, you certainly have to consider him in one way or another.
Definitely. Felix Deji's the next horse in the market, 14-1. Was fifth in the Supreme a couple of years ago, which now I think that race kind of looks pretty good. But he's took the fences pretty well as well, 2 from 2. Do you think he's going to be a contender if he goes here?
Yeah, I think he's an each-way player, particularly if All Mankind doesn't go, because he'd be like to be up there and probably be quite prominent as well.
Yeah.
I think he's a horse that's improved for fences. In the hurdling, he kind of took a lot of chances, I think. The fences, he's given a lot more respect, quite quick through the air. His Irish form has been franked by sizing Potsy last week as well.
Yes, it has, yeah.
It's a useful form line to have. The only slight question mark is he's a 7-year-old going 8, and that's normally too old for an Arkle. I think 10 of the last 11 winners have been either 6 or 7, and most of them recently have been 6. So that's a slight doubt. And his suitability for Cheltenham, he's not really put in his best performances in his career there yet. But it's early days. He's 2 from 2, and he's interesting at a bit of a price.
Definitely. We'll move on to Hitman at 16-1. Hitman was behind All Mankind in the Henry VIII. I think that's also a pretty good jumper. I don't think he's going to go here, though. I think there could potentially be, and he's maybe an entry horse, but again, jumps well. Could be if he goes here, could certainly feature.
Yeah, he ran okay behind All Mankind in Sandown, the Henry VIII. That was a significant step up in grade. So, Paul Nicholls always likes to kind of mind his horses when they're at this age, an early stage. He's another one that will lose his allowance behind All Mankind. So you have to think, wants to win an Arkle, will need to improve by at least a stone, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't see the trainer rushing him to do that. So yeah, I think he'll be minded along, and maybe next year will be the year for him.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Captainguinness is sitting at 16-1 as well. Now, my take with this horse was obviously was very unlucky in last year's Supreme and was very, very disappointing in his first run over fences. But it was then said it was an irregular heartbeat, similar to Goshen. Came back pretty well over the weekend. I thought it was very good over the weekend. Back to winning ways. Jumps a fence. I think he could be a very good player in this race. Certainly in a market without Shishkin, which they should have already.
Yeah, he was good. He's probably the Irish handicapper doesn't give marks out as quickly as the British handicapper does. So you're kind of basing your own figures. I've got him about on a par with All Mankind, maybe 154, 155, which give him a few pounds to find with Shishkin. He came down a bit too early out at the Supreme to know exactly what he was going to do.
Yeah,
he was always posted quite wide, and I thought he was quite headstrong that day. I thought, and quite fresh. Maybe we would have finished third with Chantry House, possibly. I'd been more interested to see how he handled the hill, because I think he kind of tanks through his races quite admirably. The thing I liked about him in Punchestown was after his issue, he really knuckled down quite well. You know, I mean, Rachel Blackmore got after him. They were obviously quite keen to see what was in the tank.
Yeah.
Henry de Bromhead does have a very good record of getting a lot of improvement from his hurdlers to his 2 mile novice chasers for fences. We saw it last year with Notebook, even though he didn't fire in the Arkle. I mean, he improved about a stone and a half of what on his hurdles form.
Yeah.
The Irish Arkle was the obvious target for Captainguinness now.
Yeah.
I think he's rushing back for Christmas. But Notebook and Cashback had a really hard race last year in the Irish Arkle, and it softened them up significantly, I thought.
Definitely.
Cheltenham just a month later, so I wouldn't like to see him have a hard race before backing him for Cheltenham. So if you want to play him, I think at the prices, I would wait until the declarations for the Irish Arkle come in, see if he thinks actually he's not going to get that hard a time here, then you could feasibly back him for Cheltenham, I think, because I don't think his price is going to change between now and mid-February that much.
Nah, me neither. Andy Dufresne, 16-1 as well. I don't think he'll go for this race. I think if he was going anywhere, he'd probably go the Marsh. But again, another horse that's been pretty good over fences, that's took from hurdling to fences pretty well. What do you think about Andy Dufresne?
Yeah, I think he's more likely to stay at home and needs a bit further now, I think, these days.
Yeah, definitely. Unaccepted, the horse at 16-1 for Willie Mullins. I think this horse is a great jumper. I was very, very disappointed in him last year as a a novice hurdler, but he's took defences very well.
He's quite intriguing. I think he's one of these kind of sleepers that might worry Shishkin, because I think if there's going to be someone of genuine class here in behind the obvious favourite, this could be it, because on his hurdles he was excellent. I mean, he absolutely hammered Jason the Militant by 5 lengths last year. Very early days, I think it was like November 2019, something like that. And he genuinely looked the real deal. And then I think he just picked up an injury and his form kind of fell off a cliff a little bit. But he was the one that took advantage of Captainguinness's unfortunate heartbeat by winning in his chase debut. So again, Christmas will reveal more, but I think he's got a lot of untapped class that we haven't seen yet. And the lack of Cheltenham experience is obviously a concern. The lack of travelling, he's missed a lot. So that's the only worry. But I think he's certainly a classy operator. 2 miles is definitely his trip. And out of the Willie Mullins options, I think he might be the one that I would probably side with Arkle wise at the moment. Yeah,
definitely. We'll move. Obviously, 18-1 bar. Is there any kind of horses that catch your eye out in the outsider kind of market? I've got one. I'm just going to put up Energamine. He's about 20s now. He could go in any of the 3 novice chases, and if he turned up here, I think he's going to speed for 2 miles. I would give him a mention. I think he could be a very, very good horse. But what about you? Is there any of yours that catch your eye?
Yeah. 2 other Mullins horses would be Classical Dream and Black Bow.
Right. Okay.
It'll need to be a mud bath basically for Classical Dream, I think. But and we haven't seen him yet.
When do you think we will see him? Is there any? Have you heard anything about Classical Dream?
No, not really. He might be one of their Christmas team potentially.
Yeah.
You get slightly concerned when you haven't seen horses for the season around this time. You'd like to definitely see them before the year's out for sure.
Definitely.
Black Bow was quite good in his debut.
It was.
Up and trip, but he looked at. Normally, he's a bit like Felix Deji in his hurdles form. And sometimes you get caught out by it. Took a liberty at a few, but for fences he seems to have improved as well. So he's not entirely out of things.
Let's get down to it. You're the start man, as you are every week. You've produced some amazing starts for every race we've previewed. What do we need to look for when we're looking for the winner of this race?
It's a decent race normally for punters as well. 6 of the last 9 have been won by favourites. All of those favourites were odds on, incidentally. If you'll be urging Shishkin to go odds on if you want a favourite to come in this race. 10 of the last 12 winners have been rated 151 or higher. That excludes last year's winner, because Put the Kettle On was only rated 144 before going into that race. 11 out of 12 last Arkle winners have a win at Cheltenham before.
Right, okay.
So course form, even that inexperienced novice chase level is quite important, whether it's over fences or hurdles or bumpers. The last 3 winners have been age 6, and 11 of the last 12 have either been age 6 or 7. So your 4-year-olds losing their allowance, going to 5, do tend to make life difficult for themselves, and those 8 or older tend to be a little bit outclassed. 7 of the last 9 have been won by either Willie Mullins or Nicky Henderson.
There you go.
Mullins has won 4 and Henderson's won 3, and I think that'll probably align with all the runners and riders that we've mentioned there. Most of them kind of align with Henderson or Mullins.
Definitely.
Shishkin is rated 159 already, and that's officially £15 higher than Put the Kettle On was rated that time at the race as well, and £1 higher than the favourite Notebook at the time. So if you were running it last year, you'd already be the winner in the eyes of the handicapper, more or less. So,
do you think it's just a formality that Shishkin's going to win?
I don't think it is yet. I don't think it is yet. I think if he goes out and blitzes him at Kempton and becomes an odds-on shot, then I think a lot of people will probably hold their hands up and say, I can't find anything to genuinely oppose this horse. But I think there's a couple of there's a couple of classy types in behind that we haven't seen the best of yet that might merit a bit more consideration.
Yeah, as I said earlier on, I definitely think there should be for the obviously I think the 3 novice chases at Cheltenham are already there's already a short price favourite, and there should be without favourite markets. If you were to tip something up against Shishkin, maybe to come in second or to give him a serious race, what would be the one horse you would be looking at?
I'd be torn between Captainguinness and Unaccepted. Probably just Unaccepted.
Yeah, I think that as well. I think Unaccepted as well. I think he's very, very unexposed over fences, and I think he's certainly a lot more to prove from last year. And that is your look at the Sporting Life Arkle Chase. Let's have a look at what's coming up this weekend, and we have another busy weekend before we get to the nitty-gritty of Christmas. A few to mention today at Navan. Obviously, this will probably go out after the racing's finished, but Callum's just going to mention a few horses that we're expecting to see line up today at Navan.
Yeah, just a couple that will affect the Cheltenham market. I think Bob Ollinger will probably will certainly run today. Odds on should win, so that might affect the Ballamore market. Holy Macapone is one as well. For the Ballamore and Bartlett, I'll certainly be keeping a close eye.
But you love that horse, don't you?
It's my default captain for now. Sir Gerhard and Let's Be Clear About It.
Yeah.
The bumper. That'll probably ruffle a few feathers, and then there's a few races at Ascot. The Supreme Trial, the Novice Chase, and the bumper there might be informative as well. So the last 3 races at Ascot today should be quite good.
I'm very sweet in Allard for that race, for the Novices Chase. I think Allard could be very... I obviously haven't seen him jump yet. I haven't seen him since Cheltenham, but he was very, very good that day. I think he was 5th. Like, if he takes the fences, he could be a very good chance in that race. And I'm not the biggest Fiddler on the Roof fan in the world.
No, at least he's got his ground today, so I don't think there'll be much if he gets beat again. But yeah, no, there's some good races there. I'm a bit gutted Dussart hasn't turned up. But
I was just going to touch on that with you. Do you think they're saving him for something over Christmas?
Yeah, I just think the heavy ground. If you've got a really classy horse that you like with Cheltenham in mind, I think you just take care of him. But there's a form line there anyway with Soaring Glory. Still interest for me there. So see how it goes.
Definitely. We've got a big race on Saturday at Ascot. We've got the Grade 1 Long Walk Hurdle, where we will see the return of the duel between Paisley Park and Time Hill. I'm very, very excited about this race. I don't know. I can't split Paisley Park and Time Hill. I know Time Hill beat Paisley Park last time, but I think Paisley Park's going to improve from that. I would be very, very sweet on Roxanne at 6-1 for this race. Now, not because I don't think the horse is better than Paisley Park and Time Hill. I just, again, the allowance, £7. £7 is massive in a race like this. If she travels, she's a very, very good chance, I think, in this race. Whether she beats them, I don't know, but she's certainly 6-1 seems good value to me.
Possibly. She's not for me for this. I prefer Time Hill over Paisley Park. And I prefer Main Fact over Roxanne. Right, okay. Well, just the ground. I think Main Fact that it's progressing. I think he's won 9 in a row. Obviously, graded company is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
The way he finishes off his races, I can just see him being miles off the pace and then flying home. Roxana, I mean, I think she has her plus points. You can see the mare's allowance angle. I don't think the race that she won last time out is particularly strong. And looking through her form, she's ran significantly worse on her second run in each of the last 2 seasons. One of those was at Ascot, and it was 5th or 6th. It was probably the only really genuinely flat run that she's had. I'm just wondering if she's at a horse that's best fresh.
Yeah, potentially.
This time. And I think you can't argue about Paisley Park or Time Hill leading the market. I would just make Time Hill favourite over them though.
Yeah, it's very hard to split them now. It's very hard to split them. I just have a feeling Paisley Park's just going to improve for that run. I think Time Hill's still a very, very good horse, and everybody that knows me knows I love Time Hill, and I think he's probably one of the leading contenders for this race. But Paisley Park, I think Ascot's his track. I think this could be this is a very, very good race. I'm really looking forward to this. Any other kind of horses this weekend that we should be looking out for?
And there's a horse in the last Ascot on Saturday called Cormier, and he's 50-1 in the handicap. Just because he finished midfield in the Greatwood, which is normally quite a good race on deep ground, and it was he's only 4, so it was a bit of a kind of a culture shock to him. But I thought he was slowly getting to grips with things in a messy race, and a big handicap like that. It was at Cheltenham, it was in deep ground. Maybe return to a flatter track will help, and you know, at a price on ground that looks set to be deep, that you won't mind for the Brian Ellison yard.
Yeah.
51 when you can get maybe 6 places. It's not that many runners in it either. I don't think that's maybe not a bad price, but he might be worth a pop at a huge odds.
Definitely. But that is the kind of last. They'll be the last kind of races before we look on the bump. We will be back with the bumper look next week at Christmas to see what's coming up over Christmas. We'll move on to our Ante Post Picks, and we're just going to look through our portfolio so far. There's a couple I want to touch on with you, Callum. Cobbler's Way was 50-1. Flying Scotsman for the Triumph 40-1. Shishkin Envoy Elen at 10-1 double. Holy Macapone for the Albert Bartlett at 16-1. Castro Vetera at 25-1 for the Mares Novice Hurdle. Dusat at 14-1 for the Supreme, and Column of Fire at 20-1 for the Pertemps Final. Flying Scotsman, we didn't touch on that last week. What do you think of him now? Do you think he's heading towards the Boodles, or could he still be a contender in the Triumph?
It'll remiss of me to say that I've had a saver on him for the Boodles at 33-1, purely because I'd kick myself if he turned up there and won. I just think the bad ground, I don't think's helped him in his 2 runs. He's finished on the premises a little bit, and he's been beaten a long way by horses that I don't think you'd really consider for the Triumph or the Boodles at the moment, to be honest. I think it's all about maybe getting a mark with him and try your best. But the flat form of the summer, it wasn't his ground that was as bad as that. I think it's just undoing his jumping a little bit. He needs to shed his maiden tag sooner rather than later, I think. Definitely.
Castro Vetera also ran over the week in Ireland. Was second to Delvino. Now, I thought Delvino was very, very impressive in that race. But what did you kind of make of Castro Vetera? Would you still be kind of leaning towards her for the Novice Hurdle?
I wouldn't write her off yet. I mean, like Flying Scotsman, trained by Joseph O'Brien, and a lot of his horses aren't really in form. He's not getting a lot of wins for sure at the moment. So maybe they are kind of hopefully thinking ahead a little bit. I like the way she jumped from the front. I thought she was very quick. She was a better jumper than Delvino, I thought, on the day. Again, hurdles were omitted. And it didn't suit her style at all. I wouldn't be giving up on her at all. She did battle and stay onto the line. The winner might not turn up to the festival anyway. Delvino's not... the owner, is not the biggest fan in the world. I think he had Santa Rosa, for instance, and stayed at home. So they might do the same here. You'd have to think she'll have to improve a little bit to beat some of Willie Mullins' horses. But there's a good Willie Mullins horse in third behind her called Royal Illusion. Right. She beat her fairly comfortably, I would think. And she was quite high in the Mullins camp, I think. So it was certainly a warm little race. And if she can improve from that, she's still probably an each-way player. And I can see why the bookies haven't really changed
they haven't touched her. They haven't touched her at all. We'll move on to my Ante Post Picks. So far, I've got Bob Ollinger sitting at 20-1 for any race at the festival. Honeysuckle at 3-1 for any race. Bright Forecast 25-1 to win any race. Galvin 6-1 for the National Hunt Chase. She Wales at Well 5-1 for the Mares Novice. Ngolo at 25-1 for the Albert Bartlett. Min at 8-1 for the Ryanair, and Kilcroot at 11-1 for the Champion Bumper. I just want to make a quick wee comment. I've heard Bright Forecast could potentially line up in the Cottle Star. So if he's fit, then he's one to watch. He's certainly in the bet, and I just kind of heard it through the grapevine the other day that he is being aimed at that race. He's not been, we've heard talk he's been retired, but he is being aimed at that race. So if he turns up there, I think he's sitting about 20-1 in the betting just now. If he goes there, keep an eye on him. But we'll move on to I'm one ahead of you in Ante Post Picks, so you're going to catch up with me this week. You've got 2 for us. So let's start with your first Ante Post Pick this week, Callum.
Well, you named your captain last week, so I'll name mine, and it's Billaway in the Fox Hunters.
Yep.
He was 7-1 before running it down Royal yesterday. I thought he impressed me quite a lot. He beat a couple of interesting rivals, and he was only cut to 5-1. By bookie standards this year, I was expecting a lot more off his price than that. He was second last year in it, where he didn't jump. He didn't jump badly, but he was just a bit too ordinary. The winner out jumped him most of the way. I just think a lack of experience caught him out in a race of that nature. And a year better, a year stronger. He's already got brilliant form at Ireland behind the book. He looks their best hunter's chaser. If you look through the market right now, it's the usual suspects in Britain, apart from Red Indian. I don't think Red Indian will stay 3.25 miles at Cheltenham. Shantou Flyer doesn't quite get home at the trip either. He's another year older. There's others. Top Woods is too old now. Cade de Burley fell on it last year. He normally runs with credit, but again, I think 3 miles is the limit of his stamina. Hazel Hill was thrashed in a British point. Recently, he won it 2 years ago. I don't see much in opposition of him, and I think he's better than a standard hunter's chaser for me. And he's
definitely.
Willie Mullins, Patrick Mullins. And I think Patrick Mullins is absolutely hell bent to get a Cheltenham Festival winner this year. He had 4 very unlucky seconds, I thought.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Unbelievable he didn't manage one. And I think this is probably the banker. This is the one that I think he'd be pinning his hopes on. It's the Fox Hunters. Personally, I think he should be around 7-2. 5-1 at this time for Cheltenham Festival is not something I usually dabble with or get much interest in, but I just think he's head and shoulders above the rest here. And another year under his belt, the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, definitely.
A world of beating on the day.
Yeah, I think he's rock solid for that race. We'll move on to your second Ante Post Pick.
Yeah, much more my usual self now. It's Happy Go Lucky for the National Hunt Chase at 25-1.
Right, okay.
The Kim Bailey team. He won last Friday at Cheltenham. It's a wee Grade 2 race, 3-mile one. It didn't look obviously good form at the time, but Kim Bailey targets his best novices for this race. Imperial Laura ran in it last year, didn't get home, but they just minded him for March and picked up the novice handicap. Happy Go Lucky's rated 147, so he wouldn't have been good enough there anyway. But it was interesting that he'd been taking the exact same route beforehand as Imperial Laura as well.
Yeah.
Two races as favourite to kind of build up his confidence. Beating one of them because he hated going right-handed at Twickenham. It was way too sharp for him.
Yeah.
He stayed on really well on the day at Cheltenham. And in his hurdling days last year, he had some really good form in the book. He was 4th in the Martin Pipe last year. And he was almost brought down by Colm Fire, who fell at the last. So he would have finished a lot closer.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Pipe's always a good race. He's off 137, so he ran really well that day. His novice hurdling days, he's got experience in the old course. He got beaten the Ballamore trial only by 3 lengths by a certain Time Hill.
Aye, that's right.
That's now some form line as well. Could he go RSA? That's probably the question mark. Kim Bailey mentioned after he won that Grade 2 at Cheltenham that they do have the festival in mind. Don't know the options, and I think to get standard spring ground, the National Hunt Chase would be ideal for him. And interestingly enough, he's won a point. He was second in a point in Ireland. He was ridden by Derek O'Connor, who is a leading amateur. And if I was him, I'd be on the phone pressing to get this horse into the National Hunt Chase.
Definitely.
Galvin Galvin's rated 151. Happy Go Lucky's rated 147. One's a graded winner, the others not, and it was over a wee bit further.
Yeah.
So he's proving his stamina a little bit more. He has it's a collateral line form through Galvin as well as Kim Bailey, because Galvin was second to Imperial Aura in the novice chase. So he knows exactly what is needed
to beat Galvin.
To become the favourite in this race. And if he targets him here, that would be a positive sign. Even if he just turns up in the day, because there must be an element of confidence that they can at least worry him. So I'm keen at him at 5 times the price of the favourite, which the trainer should be aware of. Let's say, I think he's an interesting long shot, 25 to 1. I think he should be probably half the price and clear second favourite in a race where not many horses are kind of putting their head above the parapet and nailing their colours to the mast for that race.
Definitely, 2 brilliant picks as always. But I've got 1 this week, and I've kind of torn between 3. And if I don't tip the ones I haven't going to tip up this week, I'm definitely going to tip them up over the Christmas period. I hope they stay the same price. But I'm going to go for Leco's Article at 16 to 1 for the Supreme. Now, again, obviously you mentioned there about his injuries. That's obviously a concern, but I've got a wee bit of a method with this. I looked at the betting beforehand the night before, and it was 40 to 1, so I put a wee bit at 40 to 1. So I feel it's only right to tip him up now at 16 to 1 before he goes any shorter. My logic behind this is it was very, very impressive over the week, on Wednesday there at Newbury, but we're hearing reports about Fairley Hollow. I just wouldn't touch him as well. I thought he was very, very good against Bob Ollinger, and I'm not the biggest Bally Adam fan in the world. So you've got Dussart, I've got Leco's Article. We're both going with Nicky Henderson horses. I think Leco's Article is very good. Plus, again, he can only improve on that. But just before we kind of touch on it, what do you kind of think of the Fairley Hollow story? Like, do you think it's true? And
I don't know. It's just all hearsay, isn't it?
Aye.
I would rather see something confirmed by the trainer before worrying about that fully yet. But yeah, there has been a drift. It always happens, doesn't it? And the closer we get to the festival, the more these rumours will come out about who's injured, who's not. Is there a setback, change of targets, all that? Yeah, it's something that just nags away in the back of your mind sometimes before you hear official confirmation. So yeah, it's something that we've just got to deal with as time goes on.
Definitely. And that was our look at our Ante Post Picks. And that will do us for this week. I want to thank Calum again for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure as always.
Cheers. Brilliant stuff.
Brilliant. We will be back on Wednesday this week with a bumper look at what's coming up over the Christmas period. Now, I'm very, very excited as always for Christmas, but this year I think it's going to be extra special. I think we're going to see some superstars over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's always a great time of year, isn't it? I mean, it's the half-term report, isn't it, of all the big reputations. They'll either be smashed or enhanced, so you can only wait and see and find out.
Definitely. We will be back on Wednesday with a bumper episode, and as always, check it. We will post a link to our social media pages down below for SM Media and both our social media pages, where we will be posting tips over the weekend for all the big races over the weekend. Thanks very much for listening, everybody, and we will see you on Wednesday. Cheers.